With the Halloween season upon us, I thought it would be a really fun idea to chat about costumes. They often help the actor. They can literally hurt the actor. They can, many times, make or break a performance, whether on stage or on screen. Allow me to share some funny situations and maybe some crazy stories designed to fit the scary season. See what I did just there? Costumes and malfunctions on this episode of Casting Actors Cast.
This is Casting Actors Cast. Jeffrey Dreisbach brings you insights and inspiration. Make a difference in your acting and your acting career. Here's Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello, and welcome to today's episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm casting director partner Jeffrey Dreisbach with the McCorkle Casting Group in New York. How are you? I hope you're having a good day. Listen, I just want to encourage you to check out my website, if you would, castingactorscast, all one word.com, castingactorscast.com. There's all kinds of freebies on it. There's a form that you can fill out that says dive into the talent pool. That opens up all kinds of freebies. There's show notes. There's courses that you can take. There's a book that you can have. There is all kinds of cool stuff on the website. So please do check it out. All right, let's just chat now a little bit about costumes and my experience both on stage as an actor and on screen as an actor. The costume has a make or break kind of energy to it sometimes. And so I thought it would be kind of fun to reflect back with you just a little bit and talk about some of the costume situations that I've experienced. And maybe you can relate to these things. So this is all just sort of in the spirit of fun during this Halloween season, talking about costumes. I remember as a kid, I remember my mother going to great lengths to build me or create a costume for me. This is way back in the day when, the families built their own costumes. Those pre-made costumes were just not part of the thing like they are now, of course. But my mom spent so much time getting these two boxes together. One was the body and then one was the head and then she painted it. She made a grandfather clock out of it. For those of you old enough to remember Captain Kangaroo, grandfather clock was a talking clock in Captain Kangaroo. And so she literally built a grandfather clock that I was able to get in. But you know what was so crazy? It was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever experienced. I couldn't see. I was just dependent upon other people to help me get the candy. It was kind of a nightmare. It was kind of a mess. But the costume was sensational, I have to say. Now, in my college years, I went to two different universities, and then I went and studied in London for a while. So I actually had three sort of experiences before I got my BFA degree. And the first memorable costume experience that I had was at Central Michigan University when I just started as a freshman. And I was lucky enough to get cast in a musical there. I did like 3 or 4 shows there. So right as a freshman, it was kind of like really cool. And they were doing the musical A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. And I was really excited that I got cast as a Protean. I don't know if you know, but the Proteans were like played multiple characters throughout the entire musical. And it was kind of considered a big role only because there was just so much to do. And irony of ironies, the character playing Miles Gloriosus at Central Michigan University was Jeff Daniels, the actor. So, yeah, I worked with Jeff Daniels on stage, and he was a great Miles Gloriosus. So one of the costumes that I had to wear was this armor playing a soldier, and that was the big entrance that I remember with Miles Gloriosus. And the armor was it was actual like aluminum chest plate that went down to the crotch. And I'm playing this protean. And so we had all of these, soldier type moves, and we had the big spear and all that stuff making our entrance. And I just remember the edge of the costume jamming into my private area to the point of like severe pain, especially in the excitement of and the adrenaline rush of an opening night. And I just remember like I couldn't break, but I was clearly being adjusted for lack of a better way to say it. And so we had all these moves, and I don't know why I didn't experience this when we had the costume fitting or whatever, but it was just in the heat of that particular moment. I was in a really rough shape. But we figured it out, but we actually ended up having to cut off part of the armor just to kind of, make room. So to speak. Crazy. But that was my real first memory of having an issue with a costume and how the costume could really like affect a performance. Then I went and studied in London for an entire semester. And then when I came back, I decided to go to Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan. And this is a costume thing, but it was kind of also a makeup thing happening. We did Shaw's The Chocolate Soldier, and I was playing Nicola, the older housekeeper in the play. And I just felt it was really important that I age myself up. As you do in college, you decide that you could play anything. And so playing a 80-year-old man was like something that I knew I could do. And so I ended up with deciding to wear this bald cap. And you know what a bald cap is. It's the rubber thing that goes over your head and you pull it down and then you apply makeup to it. And then you try to cover the seam with spirit gum to hold it down. And then I had hair wisps coming up on the side over my ears, just like wispy hair things that kind of moved. It was really, really fun. And I remember the other actor that I was sitting next to in the makeup room, and this was opening night. And his name was Mark, and Mark and I were sitting next to each other, and I'm putting on the cap, and I'm trying to do the spirit gum and get the hair thing. And without warning, that cap split right at the forehead, and it split open. And I have blonde hair, and the hair just kind of popped out. So now I have this bald cap on with this gray side and this rooster tail of blonde hair sticking out of the top of my bald cap just before the curtain. Now, when I tell you what happened, most people, I think, I'm guessing this, but most people would probably be just terrified. Like, what the hell do I do now? And instead, it was the funniest thing. And Mark and I laughed so hard. It was, one of those like deep, full on, uncontrollable, hysterical laughters that lasted a good 5 or 6 minutes. Was just completely ridiculous. And I guess that moment, it was like how ridiculous all of this is to be an actor in a stage and getting ready for a performance. And it just was unforgettable. And I will never forget that moment as long as I live, just because it was so hysterical. So I don't know honestly, I don't remember what I did. I think I just tried to shove it back in, and I just took gobs of makeup and put it right over that spot, that split. I'm pretty doubtful that it was a successful thing to do. So that was my Wayne State University experience with doing a Shaw play. Now, moving on from there, I can just tell you that we had I had a really excellent experience working at the Henry Ford Museum in downtown Detroit. It was called the Greenfield Village, and there was a small replica of a town hall, I guess. Yeah, it was a town hall, and it looked like a town hall. And if you know Greenfield Village, they really did have just famous houses of famous people, and it was really cool because you could walk around and you could go into Daniel Webster's house, and you could see Thomas Edison's laboratory. So it was really kind of a educational and really cool thing. But they decided that they were going to put a show on at the town hall at Greenfield Village, and so I was cast to be a singer and dancer, and we would wear these turn of the century period costumes, and the stage was very, very small. But there were six of us, three men, three women, who would, on this little tiny town hall stage, would do period song and dance. And we would tap and we would sing, and it was just like a little review, I guess is the best way to describe it. And the costumes that we had were, like I said, turn of the century, but all of the guys were wearing these just black trousers. They weren't really like authentic. I don't think they had these, polyester black trousers. They didn't kind of exist at the turn of the century. But anyway, that's what we had. And I just remember, again, very, very early in the run, that I was in our little dressing room in the basement, and I had to go to the bathroom. I don't know about you, but I kind of have to pee, just before going on. That was like a thing I had to do. I had this very distinct, strong urge to go to the bathroom. So I did that, and I'm now I took care of business, and then I'm zipping up my zipper, and the zipper doesn't move. It remains completely open. And now I'm hearing places, please, places. And so now I'm trying to run up the steps from the dressing room to the wings of the theater, and I cannot get my zipper up. It was impossible. Now, the gentleman that I was working with, he jumped in and tried to make the zipper work. And what was bizarre is that the music started, and on the other side of the wings, suddenly the three women on the other side are now looking at this fellow performer trying to help me with the zipper, and they could only see his back. And so I'm standing there, and he's bent over. Well, you can imagine the picture. And I have to say, I looked at the three women across the stage, and it must have just horrified them, because I was horrified, and of course they were too. And now we have to make our entrance. So, you know what? I didn't do anything. I just let it be what it was. And I went out, and we did the opening number. And I just remember just being mortified beyond words. And I also remember, because it was tight quarters, I also remember many of the audience folks really got more show than they should have. But that was a totally bizarre and ridiculous situation that happened. We call that the town hall immovable zipper. Oh my gosh. So I did a lot of musicals early on, and I also was cast. The Seattle Repertory Theater was doing a production of Guys and Dolls at the Seattle Repertory Theater. And it was really a fantastic cast. And I was really excited to be a part of it. But the thing that most people were confused by when I told them the part that I was going to be cast in, the confusion is that the director had a very specific concept of what he wanted for the character. And the character that I was cast in was Big Julie. Now, if you know Guys and Dolls, Big Julie is supposed to be this very, traditionally speaking, supposed to be this very big gangster, this sort of cartoonish, big-shouldered, huge kind of gangster. And as the director explained the concept to me when the offer went out, he wanted Big Julie to be a dangerous psychopath, not necessarily big physically, but just and I was tall. I am tall, but he wanted somebody just to be wiry and kind of a nervous serial killer kind of idea was his vision of the role. So I thought, well, that's like beyond interesting. So I decided I'm going to do that. Okay. All right. So I took the job. Out to Seattle I go. And now as we're starting to rehearse the show, and I am throwing everything I can at playing this character. I am trying to be weird. I'm trying to be wiry. I'm trying bizarre movements, and he said, I really want Big Julie to have like a bottle of acid, so that when he lifts up the bottle, he could take the tip off the bottle and you could see the smoke coming out of the acid coming out. And so I thought, well, okay, let's try that. We tried that in a rehearsal as we were getting close to opening. And I actually, the choreography was such that I had slipped and I had fallen back, and the bottle of acid, it was like literally like acid, came up and almost burned myself and burnt the costume. And so clearly that wasn't going to work. And now we're stuck with, okay, none of these concepts, none of the effort I was making was working. And honestly, I'm saying this for the very first time in my life, but I should have been fired because I just wasn't right. You can't sort of mess with guys and dolls. You just can't mess with it too much. And so what happened is the director and I got together, and this was maybe 3 days before opening with a costumer. And guess what? They gave me 6-inch lifts on my shoes. They gave me huge monster shoulder pads. They gave me this great big hat that barely fit but was still there. And I changed my voice completely. I dropped my voice as low as I could go. And isn't that terrible? And it was the traditional Big Julie. But what a nightmare to go from one concept to something completely different than have an opening night. The Seattle Repertory Theater is a very high regarded theater. Dan Sullivan, the director, was the artistic director of the Seattle Repertory Theater at that time. And that was just a very, very memorable experience. The run was a very difficult. I really didn't have the best time doing that particular project. But listen, I've got a couple more stories for you, and we're going to check on those costume nightmare stories right after this.
Are you wishing for acting success? Are you ready with audition techniques for theater, film, and television? Are you ready with proven methods for growing your talent? Are you ready to boost your business? It would help if you had a playbook to guide you. Now, there's Jeff's Jots, the actor's career playbook by Jeffrey Dreisbach. Jeff's Jots at Amazon.com, CastingActorsCast.com, available in paperback, hardcover, or ebook. Stop wishing and start doing with Jeff's Jots, the actor's career playbook.
All right, thank you for that. So I think that the other costume situations that I had in my acting career was a horror movie that I was in called Girls' Night Out. And I played a basketball player on the college basketball team. And it was a scene in the locker room where all of the basketball players are to come in because they just won the big game and they're high-fiving everybody, and then they go into the shower whereupon they see somebody who had been slashed and murdered, and a kind of gross slasher movie style. And so the director said, okay, everybody, I want you to run into the locker room and I want you to take off all your clothes and then run into the shower. Now, I'm looking at the guy next to me, and I happen to be put right downstage, right next to the camera. I mean, really close to the camera. And it's a long shot, but yet I'm the closest one to the camera. And I kind of turned to the other actor, and I said, did he say take off all your clothes? And the guy says, yeah, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. What are we going to... Okay, everybody, let's get it together, and action. And so I was like, okay. And so we all run in, we're high-fiving, and I'm looking at this other actor. The other actor's looking at me, and I was like, Yay! And I go ahead and I take off my shirt. I think, okay, that's going to go. And the director is signaling to keep going. And so I look and get this other actor like, oh my God, are we gonna, okay. And then I pull down my shorts and then I pull down my underwear. And as I'm pulling down my underwear, the director yells, cut. I look up and no one has taken off their shorts. And my lily white behind is now furthest downstage and closest to the camera. So if you want to see Jeff's posterior, then you might want to check out the movie called Girls Night Out. I did another thing in that movie which was so unforgettable, which was they had me at a costume party in the movie, and I'm wearing all silver on my face and a pot over my head to look like the Tin Man. That was the longest day of my life, staying in that silver-faced pot head costume. Okay, one more story really quick before we go. I had the pleasure of being in Die Hard with a Vengeance, Die Hard 3. And it was a really fun experience. It was a scene with Samuel Jackson that I really, and this was Sam Jackson's like early movie. And I played a yuppie stockbroker, and I'm driving a Mercedes, and Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson cut me off with their Yugo, and I end up with the Yugo and a gold bar in the back seat as they take my fantastic Mercedes. So I show up that morning and I get the costume, and you know what, guys? It is like $1,000 Armani suit at that time. It was like, it fit me so beautifully and so perfectly. I was like, oh my God, I have never had clothing that fit so well and looked so cool. And so I was all excited. And so the actual shot took place on the FDR Drive on the east side of Manhattan. And so we did several takes and it went fine, although we were on the FDR Drive literally, and they had to stop traffic so that in between takes, they would let the traffic up and the cars would start rolling by again. And people, me and Sam Jackson, just standing on the side of the road, and people are giving us the finger and yelling at us because we were just disrupting their commute. So it was kind of, that was a real, I felt really scared. But anyway, at the end of the day, this my scene was shot. I was done. I bring my suit back to the guy and I say, you know what? I just wanted to tell you that this was like the nicest piece of clothing, and you did such an amazing job. I'm going to really miss not having this suit, but I just wanted to thank you so much. And he was just a really nice guy, the costume designer at that time. And so I parted ways with the beautiful suit. Now jump ahead 6 weeks later, this small, almost the size of a shoebox, if not something just slightly bigger, arrives at my door, and guess what? It's the suit. The costume designer stuffed this entire suit. This is not really, I shouldn't be telling you this story because this is like really not legal. This is not like a cool thing to do. But he was so grateful for what I had told him, he decided to give me that suit that I wore. And so I wanted to end today's show on a really, kind of a nice story. And so for the most part, I have to say, a costume usually benefits the actor and doesn't really detract from the performance. But there are those times when it becomes an issue. The best experience is when the costume informs the actor about the character. Now that's great. And there are those times that the costume makes it, about the costume, not the actor who has to wear it. Other times, when the actors have been difficult when working with the costumer may decide to create an uncomfortable situation by, I've had this happen, leaving some straight pins It hasn't happened to me, by the way. It's happened to others. It really hasn't happened to me. But I've seen costumers or dressers leave straight pins or make sure that the seams in the costume are very, very weak. Okay, now that's pretty not great, right? And I have never had that happen. But my guess is that everyone has had a kind of similar experience with their costume. I've had it happen. It does happen. The best advice to share with you is to love the costume. Love the designer, love the wardrobe personnel, love your dresser. They can save your bacon and keep egg off your face. That's it for now. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. You've been watching and listening Casting Actors Cast. Thanks so much.